Welcome to Spooky Night BM. Today we will be looking into the horrific murder of Sylvia. Before going into the video, please do like, subscribe and press the bell icon to get our latest videos. Sylvia Marie Likens, January 3, 1949 to October 26, 1965, was an American teenager who was tortured and murdered by her caregiver, Gertrude Banisewski, many of Banisewski's children, and several of their neighborhood friends. The abuse lasted for 3 months, occurring incrementally, before Likens died from her extensive injuries and malnourishment on October 26, 1965, in Indianapolis, Indiana. Likens was increasingly neglected, belittled, sexually humiliated, beaten, starved, lacerated, burned, and dehydrated by her tormentors. Her autopsy showed 150 wounds across her body, including several burns, scald marks, and eroded skin. Through intimidation, her younger sister, Jenny, was occasionally forced to participate in her mistreatment. Gertrude Banisewski, her oldest daughter, Paula, her son, John, and 2 neighborhood youths, Coy Hubbard and Richard Hobbs, were all tried and convicted in May 1966 of neglecting, torturing, and murdering Likens. Indianapolis Police Department as the most sadistic case he had ever investigated in the 35 years he served with the Indianapolis Police. By June 1965, Sylvia and Jenny Likens resided with their parents in Indianapolis. On July 3, their mother was arrested and subsequently jailed for shoplifting. Shortly thereafter, Lester Likens arranged for his daughters to board with Gertrude Banisewski, the mother of 2 girls with whom the sisters had recently become acquainted while studying at Arsenal Technical High School, Paula and Stephanie Banisewski. At the time of this boarding agreement, Gertrude assured Lester she would care for his daughters until his return as if they were her own children. Gertrude would receive weekly boarding fees of $20 to care for their daughters until they returned to collect Sylvia and Jenny in November of that year. Although Lester Likens had agreed to pay Gertrude Banisewski $20 a week in exchange for the care of his daughters, after approximately 2 weeks, these payments failed to consistently arrive. Gertrude began venting her frustration at this fact upon the sisters. Late August, both girls were beaten approximately 15 times on the back with the aforementioned paddle, after Paula had accused the sisters of eating too much food at a church supper the household children had attended. This initial abuse included subjecting Likens to beatings and starvation, forcing her to eat leftovers or spoiled food out of garbage cans. Likens was subjected to humiliation when she claimed to have a boyfriend. Gertrude asked if Sylvia had ever done anything with a boy, to which Likens, unsure of her meaning, replied, "I guess so." Gertrude returned to the subject with Likens, telling her, "You're certainly getting big in the stomach, Sylvia. It looks like you're going to have a baby." "Yeah, it sure is getting big. I'm just going to have to go on a diet." Paula, herself 3 months pregnant, and also jealous of Likens' physical appearance. Gertrude, Paula, and a neighborhood boy named Randy Gordon Lepper force-fed Likens a hot dog overloaded with condiments, including mustard, ketchup, and spices. Likens vomited as a result, and was later forced to consume what she had regurgitated. Stephanie and Paula Banisewski were prostitutes. However, when Stephanie's boyfriend, 15-year-old Coy Randolph Hubbard, heard of the rumor, he brutally attacked Likens, slapping her, banging her head against the wall and flipping her backwards onto the floor. When Gertrude found out, she used a paddle to beat Likens on another occasion. Paula beat Likens about the face with such force that she broke her own wrist. In July and August, both Lester and Elizabeth Likens would occasionally return to Indianapolis to visit their daughters. Neither girl exhibited any visible sign of distress about their mistreatment to their parents. This was likely because both were in the presence of Gertrude and her children. On one occasion in September, the girls encountered their older sister, Diana Shoemaker, at a local park. Both Jenny and Sylvia informed Diana about the abuse they were enduring at the hands of their caregiver. Diana believed her sisters must have been exaggerating their claims regarding the scope of their mistreatment. The pair then subjected Likens to a scalding bath in order to cleanse her of sin, with Gertrude grabbing Likens' hair and repeatedly banging her head against the bath to revive her whenever she fainted. In July and August, both Lester and Elizabeth Likens would occasionally return to Indianapolis to visit their daughters. Neither girl exhibited any visible sign of distress about their mistreatment to their parents. This was likely because both were in the presence of Gertrude and her children. On one occasion in September, the girls encountered their older sister, Diana Shoemaker, at a local park. Both Jenny and Sylvia informed Diana about the abuse they were enduring at the hands of their caregiver. Diana believed her sisters must have been exaggerating their claims regarding the scope of their mistreatment. The pair then subjected Likens to a scalding bath in order to cleanse her of sin, with Gertrude grabbing Likens' hair and repeatedly banging her head against the bath to revive her whenever she fainted. Shortly after this incident, the father of a neighborhood boy named Michael John Monroe phoned Arsenal Technical High School to anonymously report that a girl with open sores across her entire body was living at the Banisevsky household. As Likens had not attended school for several days, a school nurse visited East New York Street to investigate these claims. Gertrude claimed to the nurse that Likens had run away from her home. The school made no further investigations concerning Likens' welfare. Gertrude had increasingly abused and tormented Likens. On one occasion, Gertrude held a knife aloft and challenged Likens to fight me back, to which Likens replied she did not know how to fight. In response, Gertrude inflicted a light scour wound to Likens' leg. Neighborhood children restrained and gagged Likens before placing her in a bathtub filled with scalding water and proceeding to rub salt into her wounds. On one occasion, Gertrude and her 12-year-old son, John Jr., rubbed urine and feces from Gertrude's 1-year-old son's diaper into Likens' mouth before giving her a cup half filled with water and stating the water was all she would receive for the remainder of the day. Likens, by this stage suffering from extreme malnourishment, attempted to eat the food. The following morning, Gertrude discovered that Likens had urinated on herself. As a punishment, Likens was forced to insert an empty glass Coca-Cola bottle into her vagina in the presence of the Banisevsky children before Gertrude ordered her into the basement shortly thereafter. Gertrude shouted for Likens to return to the kitchen, then ordered her to strip naked before proclaiming to her, "You have branded my daughters, now I am going to brand you." She began carving the words "I'm a prostitute and proud of it" onto Likens' abdomen with a heated needle. That night, Sylvia confided to her sister, "Jenny, I know you don't want me to die, but I'm going to die. I can tell it." The following day, Gertrude Banisevsky woke Likens, then forced her to write a letter as she dictated the contents. The content of this letter was intended to frame a group of anonymous local boys for extensively abusing and mutilating Likens. Gertrude forced the crackers into her mouth before repeatedly striking her face with a curtain rod until sections of the instrument were bent into right angles. Coy Hubbard then took the curtain rod from Gertrude and struck Likens one further time, rendering her unconscious. Gertrude then dragged Likens into the basement. One immediate neighbor of the Banisevskys would later inform police she had heard the desperate commotion and that she had identified the source as emanating from the basement of 3850 East New York Street, but that as the noise had suddenly ceased at approximately 3 a.m. By the morning of October 26, Likens was unable to either speak intelligibly or correctly coordinate the movement of her limbs. Likens to the floor in frustration when Likens was unable to correctly move the glass of milk to her lips. She was then returned to the basement. In an attempt to wash Likens, a laughing John Banisevsky Jr. sprayed her with a garden hose brought to the house that afternoon by Randy Lepper at Gertrude's request. Likens again desperately attempted to exit the basement but collapsed before she could reach the stairs. In response to this effort, Gertrude stamped upon Likens' head before standing and staring at her for several moments. Shortly after 5:30 p.m., Richard Hobbs returned to the Banaszewski residence and immediately proceeded to the basement. He slipped on the wet basement stairs and fell heavily to the floor of the basement to be confronted with the sight of Stephanie crying and cuddling Lycan's emaciated and lacerated body after she had been ordered by her mother to clean Sylvia. Stephanie and Richard then decided to give Lycan a warm, soapy bath and dress her in new clothes. When Stephanie realized that Lycan was not breathing, she attempted to apply mouth-to-mouth resuscitation as Gertrude repeatedly shouted to the children in the house that Lycan was faking her death. Lycan was 16 years old when she finally succumbed to her injuries. Gertrude Banaszewski initially beat Lycan's corpse with a book, shouting "Faker! Faker!" in order to rouse her. However, she soon panicked and instructed Richard Hobbs to call the police from a nearby payphone. As previously instructed by Gertrude, Jenny Lycan recited the rehearsed version of events leading to Lycan's death to police, before whispering to the officers, "You get me out of here and I'll tell you everything." Thank you for watching. Please do like, share and subscribe.